Now we will come to the pleural lesions. Presence of fluid in the pleural cavity is termed as pleural effusion, which is a primary tuberculous infection. Pleural effusion. A mild or minimal effusion causes blunting of the costophrenic angle, which is the earliest sign of a developing pleural effusion. A moderate effusion produces uniformly opaque shadow in the lower zone, which typically rises in the axilla. It also displaces the mediastinum towards the opposite side. A massive pleural effusion produces complete or almost complete opacity of the affected side and a marked shift of the mediastinum to the opposite side. This is a typical X-ray of a moderate-sized pleural effusion. Note the homogeneous opacity of the right lower zone with a concave upper border which is well defined but not sharp, rising higher on the lateral side towards the axilla. This is a characteristic appearance in pleural effusion. In this X-ray, we see a minimal pleural effusion seen as an obliteration or blunting of the left costophrenic angle. A minimum of 250 to 300 ml of free fluid is required to produce this minimal shadow in the routinely taken anteroposterior film of the chest. Compare it with the right costophrenic angle, which is sharply defined. This is another X-ray showing blunting of the right costophrenic angle. Note the haziness filling the angle. Comparison with the opposite costophrenic angle will make these minor changes more apparent. So blunting or opacity of the costophrenic angle is the earliest change in a pleural effusion. This is another X-ray of a moderately large pleural effusion. Note the homogeneous opacity with the concave upper border and note that the mediastinum has shifted to the opposite side. Of course, if the mediastinum is not mobile, then mediastinal shift may not be present even if the effusion is large. This is another X-ray of a moderately large pleural effusion. Note the homogeneous opacity in the right lower zone with concave upper border rising in the axilla and the shift of the heart to the opposite side. So the features of a pleural effusion are blunting of the costophrenic angle, homogeneous opacity with a concave upper border which rises on the lateral side, and shift of mediastinum to the opposite side. This now is a very massive effusion with complete opacity of the right side and shift of mediastinum to the opposite side. Note the shift of the heart to the left side. When the opacity is complete and concave upper border is not seen, then shift of mediastinum to the opposite side is very suggestive of a pleural effusion. This X-ray shows a massive effusion on the left side. The concave upper border is not seen as the fluid is completely filling the left chest. Note the tremendous shift of mediastinum that the fluid has caused, pushing the heart to the right side. This is a typical massive pleural effusion. Now this is a set of two X-rays of a patient of right pleural effusion before and after aspiration. This is a very typical shadow of pleural effusion. And this second X-ray after aspiration shows that the fluid is removed, the lung has expanded, the costophrenic angle is clear, and there is a diffuse thin haziness in the right lower zone, which is due to the pleural reaction or inflammation. This is another set of X-rays before and after pleural fluid aspiration. Note the right pleural effusion. The second X-ray after fluid aspiration shows the pleural reaction as haziness in the right costophrenic angle. And the third X-ray after 2 months of chemotherapy shows a completely clear lung field. Now in this X-ray, there is a homogeneous fluid opacity with a smooth curved border, but it has not concave but convex border. This is an encysted pleural effusion where the fluid is loculated due to pleural adhesions. The opacity is peripheral and its convex border is towards the lung. This is characteristic of an encysted or loculated pleural effusion. This is another opaque peripheral shadow with convexity towards the lung, which was an encysted pleural effusion. A similar shadow may be seen with a cold abscess arising from the ribs or an extrapleural mass. An ultrasonography is helpful in confirming the diagnosis and in localization of the point for aspiration of the fluid. Sometimes an encysted effusion lies in the right interlobar fissure and produces a shadow between the 4th and 6th ribs anteriorly. And in a lateral view, a characteristic elliptical shadow of the fluid is seen, extending from the 5th thoracic vertebra behind to meet the diaphragm anteriorly 4 centimeters behind the sternum. Sometimes the fluid gets collected under the lower surface of the lung, between the lung and the diaphragm, and remains convex upwards. Note in this X-ray that the right diaphragm appears to be elevated with preservation of the costophrenic angle. This is termed as a subpulmonic effusion, an effusion under the lung. After aspiration of fluid, the true diaphragm is seen and the lower lobe of the lung has expanded. Let us compare the level of the diaphragm in the two pictures. The inner X-ray before aspiration shows the raised hemidiaphragm. A similar appearance may be seen in subphrenic abscess and diaphragmatic paralysis. Pneumothorax. Pneumothorax is a collection of air in the pleural cavity. It produces a partial collapse of the lung and is seen as a uniformly black peripheral shadow outside the lung border with absence of vascular markings. When large, it produces a complete collapse of the lung and shift of mediastinum to the opposite side. Note the collapsed right lung, which gets collected as a radio-opaque shadow at the hilum in massive pneumothorax. In this X-ray, note the peripheral radiolucent area on the left side with no bronchovascular markings. This uniformly black area represents a collection of air in the pleural cavity or pneumothorax. The lung is collapsed and you can see that it is more radio-opaque and its border is seen as a thin white line demarcating the collapsed lung. Note in the close-up view the absence of bronchovascular markings over the pneumothorax and the sharp border separating it from the lung. Now in this view, compare the normal lung on the right side with pneumothorax on the left side. Absence of bronchovascular markings is better appreciated when compared with the normal lung on the opposite side. This is another X-ray showing air in the right pleural cavity without significant shift of mediastinum. Note the peripheral radiolucent area on the right side and the thin line of lung border representing the visceral pleura which demarcates the collapsed lung from the air. Note the absence of lung markings in the dark radiolucent area. Now this is a set of two X-rays. The first X-ray shows left pneumothorax. Note the radiolucent peripheral zone along the chest wall and the apex. The costophrenic angle is clear, indicating that there is no associated fluid or pus in the pleural cavity. Now this second X-ray shows the picture after aspiration of air. The lung has expanded and the bronchovascular markings are seen up to the chest wall. The lung does not show any lesion, infiltration or emphysematous bulla. Such spontaneous pneumothorax occurs due to a subpleural tuberculous focus. This is another case of pneumothorax in a child. Note the radiolucent shadow around the right lung. The lung border is sharply defined and the lung itself shows uniform opaque shadow suggestive of associated consolidation. If the pneumothorax is very small or not seen clearly, then the X-ray should be repeated in full expiration when pneumothorax is demonstrated more clearly. If the pneumothorax is traumatic, you should look for rib fractures and inspect the subcutaneous tissues for surgical emphysema. In this X-ray, note the pneumothorax on the right side and note the air in the subcutaneous tissues shown by the black arrows. The air in the subcutaneous tissues is termed as subcutaneous emphysema. The black arrow shows the air delineating the subcutaneous tissues and the muscles. And the white arrow marks the lung border, lateral to which is the radiolucent shadow of pneumothorax. Now a careful inspection of all the ribs will reveal a rib fracture which has caused the pleural injury and air leak. In this X-ray, the radiolucent shadow is seen only in the lower zone. It does not extend to the apex. This is an encysted pneumothorax. The air in the pleural cavity is loculated due to pleural adhesions. Note the well-defined sharp border and compression of the adjoining lung tissue. If the border of an encysted pneumothorax is very thin, then it is difficult to differentiate it from an emphysematous bulla. A bulla has very thin borders and it does not compress the adjoining lung tissue as seen here. This is a massive pneumothorax on the right side with total collapse of the right lung and the mediastinal shift to the opposite side. Note the complete radiolucency on the right side with collapsed lung at the hilum. Since the lung is completely collapsed and airless, it has become white or opaque and it occupies only a small area near the hilum. Any pneumothorax which occupies more than 1/3 of the hemithorax needs to be drained using an intercostal tube. This is another case of a complete pneumothorax. The left hemithorax is radiolucent and the mediastinum is markedly pushed to the opposite side, compressing the right lung. The large amount of shift of mediastinum is indicative of the high pressure in the pneumothorax, and this is termed as a tension pneumothorax. A tension pneumothorax is a medical emergency requiring urgent drainage as it is compressing the opposite lung and hampering with its expansion. This is one more X-ray of tension pneumothorax. Note the radiolucency over the entire left hemithorax, complete collapse of the left lung, and signs of high pressure in the left pleural sac. That is, the mediastinum is shifted to the opposite side, compressing the opposite lung. The diaphragm is pushed downwards and flattened, and the intercostal spaces are wider. This is tension pneumothorax. This is another X-ray of tension pneumothorax. Note the complete radiolucency of the right hemithorax with shift of mediastinum to the opposite side. The diaphragm is pushed down to a level lower than the left diaphragm and intercostal spaces are widened. Hydro and pyoneumothorax. When pleural cavity contains both fluid and air, the condition is termed as hydropneumothorax if the fluid is clear and pyoneumothorax if the fluid is pus. This X-ray shows a horizontal fluid level in the right hemithorax which is touching the chest wall laterally. The red arrow shows the horizontal fluid level and the yellow arrow shows the border of the collapsed lung seen parallel to the chest wall, separated from it by the radiolucent band of pneumothorax. These two lines mark the hydropneumothorax. Now inspect the peripheral zone. Above the fluid level, we see the peripheral band of radiolucency due to air, and below it is the opacity due to the fluid. This is hydropneumothorax. This is another X-ray showing hydropneumothorax on the left side. Note the fluid level, the air above it, and the collapsed lung. In the close-up view, the red arrow shows the fluid level and yellow arrow shows the collapsed lung border. Whenever there is a horizontal fluid level with pneumothorax and lung collapse, it is a hydropneumothorax or a pyoneumothorax. Now, how to make out whether the fluid is pus or a simple serous fluid? It is not possible to distinguish it so with certainty, but suspect a pyoneumothorax if the ribs cannot be seen through the fluid and if the lung border shows a lot of fibrosis. In the first X-ray that we saw, we can see the ribs through the fluid and the lung border is thin, so it is definitely a hydropneumothorax. In the second X-ray, the ribs cannot be seen through the fluid, and though the lung border is not much thickened, it is more likely to be a pneumothorax. In this X-ray, note the loculated fluid collection on the left side with an air fluid level. The fluid appears to be pus, as ribs cannot be seen through them, and note the marked thickening of the lung border. So this is loculated pneumothorax. Compare it with this X-ray of loculated hydropneumothorax. Note the lung border shown by the yellow arrow, which is not fibrosed. On aspiration, clear fluid and air were aspirated. And in the next X-ray, you will see that the lung has expanded well with only a thin rim of air and small amount of fluid at the bottom. Now here we see a fluid level on the right side with air and the lung border, but only in the lower part. The air is not extending to the apex. This is loculated pneumothorax. The thick lung border suggests that it is a pneumothorax. Note in this X-ray of loculated pneumothorax that the ribs are not seen through the fluid, and note the thick fibrosed lung border. Pneumothorax is often loculated due to formation of adhesions. In the upper half, compare the lung on both sides, and the compression of the left lung will be clearly evident. This was a loculated pneumothorax. An after effect of a pyothorax is pleural thickening and in some cases pleural calcification. Note the irregular dense opacity in the right mid and lower zone. It is denser than the bone and is distributed irregularly. This is a typical shadow of pleural calcification. Note the extremely dense shadow which is sharply defined. If there is any doubt, a lateral or a tangential X-ray should be taken. The shadow of pleural calcification is seen to lie along the chest wall. This is another typical pleural calcification. It is a very dense and irregular sheet-like opacity with no fixed distribution pattern. Note the sheet-like opacity denser than the ribs with no fixed pattern. This is another X-ray of pleural calcification with dense, irregular, sheet-like opacity. Note in the close-up view its density, pattern, and the typical appearance. Primary complex. Primary complex is a primary tuberculous infection seen in children. Radiologically, it shows two components, a peripheral parenchymal lesion and enlarged hilar lymph nodes. This is an X-ray of a primary complex. Note the increased density in the hilar region. Let's have a closer look. These are hilar lymph nodes seen as well-defined nodular dense radio-opacities in the region of the hilum in line with the parenchymal lesion. The blue arrow shows the parenchymal infiltration in the lower lobe. And here we see both the lesions together, the parenchymal lesion and the hilar lymph nodes. So, a primary complex has a parenchymal lesion and enlarged hilar nodes. The parenchymal lesion may sometimes be very small or resolved, and then enlarged hilar nodes is the only evidence of a primary complex. This X-ray of a child shows a primary complex with a small pleural effusion. Pleural effusion is more common in adult primary tuberculosis than in children. In a close-up view, note the two hilar nodes, then note the parenchymal lesion which defines the primary complex, and the vertical arrow shows the blunting of the right costophrenic angle due to a small pleural effusion. The next X-ray is an X-ray of a child with large hilar nodes on the right side shown by the blue arrow, and the vertical yellow arrow points to a parenchymal lesion. Now note the mediastinal widening. Presence of mediastinal nodes suggests that the primary complex has progressed to a post-primary tuberculosis. So one must look for mediastinal widening and widening of the carina. This X-ray shows hilar congestion on both sides with hilar nodes on the left side. Note in close-up view the dense nodular shadows of the hilar nodes and the faint parenchymal infiltration. This is an X-ray of the same child after 6 months of treatment, where the lymph nodes and the infiltration have both resolved. This is another X-ray showing hilar nodes on both sides. Note the rounded opacities at the left hilum. There is no parenchymal lesion seen. The right side also shows similar well-defined opacities of the hilar nodes. This is primary complex. Thoracoplasty. Before we end the section on tuberculosis, let me show you some X-rays of patients who have undergone thoracoplasty, which was a very common surgical treatment for upper lobe cavities before the advent of good chemotherapeutic agents. Note the absence of upper ribs on the right side. Thoracoplasty involved surgical removal of the upper 5 to 8 ribs, resulting in complete collapse of the upper lobe, which collapsed the cavity, rested the diseased lung, and resulted in a cure. This X-ray shows right-sided thoracoplasty. Note the absence of ribs over the right upper zone. The underlying lung appears normal. In a close-up view, count the upper ribs on the left side. We can see that 5 ribs have been excised. And note that the tuberculous lesion is cured. This is an X-ray showing left-sided thoracoplasty where 8 ribs have been removed. This is an X-ray many years after surgery, and you can see new bone formation from the periosteum of the ribs which is left behind. The calcification shown by the arrow shows how much collapse of the chest wall has been achieved by this surgery.